This is a review of Brain Meets the Mes, written by Menesh Patel and illustrated by Elina Oplakanska. I apologize if I've mispronounced any names. This children's story is presented in rhyming couplets throughout, with whimsical illustrations. It is the story of a cat named Brain, who decides to go on an adventure one day. He's whisked away a la Wizard of Oz, and lands in front of a dragon who decides to take him home to feed her babies. Hijinks ensue, and eventually Brain escapes. That's the summary without spoilers, but I'm going to give a bit more detail on this one. When we're introduced to Brain, there's every indication that he's an Earth cat. We're not told of any fanciful origins or residence. It's not until Brain is speaking to Mother Me, the dragon, that we get any indication otherwise. So, at first, I thought this was bravado, that there was some underlying message about telling lies when you're scared or talking to someone and then you realize you shouldn't be speaking to strangers, but that's not what's happening. I will applaud Mr. Patel for choosing to make the dragon the villain. I've seen some recent media that show the dragons as good guys, if not heroes in their own right, at least allies of the hero, and that's fine. I applaud the choice here because there might be concern about backlash from people claiming that there's a level of intolerance involved by doing so. This is actually the strongest point in the story. If your life is physically at stake, warm fuzzies aren't going to save you. Brain saves himself. He runs about, knocking things over, creating obstacles to slow down the dragons, who are much larger than he is and not nearly as agile. And so Brain makes good his escape out of the cave, through a chimney no less, and it is at this point that we discover that his statements to Mother Me weren't bravado. He says, "I still have no way back to Aurelius." But then we see, in the last panel, he's approaching what could be considered a rustic lodge house, complete with a creek that's wide enough for a bridge. It ends saying that Brain is ready for adventure. So this, perhaps, is not his home. But if it isn't, why introduce him in such a banal way? Why tell us he's not any usual cat, but not mention that he's from another planet? Something about his world's environment when he's in the trees, a description of them that shows them to be unearthly, would have been a clue. Without some indication, there's confusion, and it's off-putting. There were also two aspects of the diction that made me pause. One is the use of the word fungal as a noun to rhyme with jungle. Fungal is an adjective. I was jarred from reading, and I can tell you that the experience for younger readers when the parent stops is one of confusion. Parents might not want to explain how English grammar works to a small child. Younger children might not even know what fungi are. So there are already going to be new words to learn. Perhaps parents could use it as a means to teach children how to use a kid-friendly version of the dictionary. The other word usage that stood out to me was flume instead of flue, to describe Brain's egress through the chimney. Since it is specifically described as a chimney, it should be flue. It's an air conveyance, not a water one. But flume was chosen because it rhymes with boom. Again, these are distinctions that adults reading to the children will make, but children will not. And teaching incorrect vocabulary does not help a child's communication skills. Lastly, I want to bring up the choice of names for Brain's home planet and sun. The planet is named Aurelius, which is also the name of an emperor of Rome, also known as Marcus Aurelius. He was also a Stoic philosopher. The Stoic school of thought is basically that all things are natural, and that something cannot be bad or tragic by definition, but only subjectively. If you want more information on Stoicism or on Marcus Aurelius, I've included a brief video for each in the description, but there are a plethora to choose from, so feel free to look for more in-depth information. The sun of Brain's solar system is called Pelagius. Pelagius was the name of a Christian theologian who denied the concept of original sin and was called a heretic for it. I admit I'm curious as to the intent behind the use of these names. Were they just chosen because of how they sound? Or are they subtle references on Mr. Patel's part to the adversity that Brain will face in future adventures? Are they intended as foreshadowing of how Brain will respond to events? Whether Mr. Patel chooses to use the Stoic philosophy or Christian tenets when describing Brain's reactions, and in what context, may determine whether parents feel comfortable reading this to their children. Yes, we want our children to have the mindset to overcome diversity rather than to wallow in every setback. Likewise, we want our children to be responsible for their actions. But some parents may not agree with all of the tenets of Stoicism or those of Christianity, and that's assuming that Mr. Patel even intended this to be a factor in the book at all. Incidentally, there's another name used here, Mogwal. The only reference I found was to a Korean poet, but it is also close to Mugwai. Gizmo is cute and fluffy, but I can't ignore a potential philosophical connection. I am intrigued by the possibility of the use of philosophy in an intentional way to affect the story. I'm interested to see if Mr. Patel continues, and I freely admit that I hope Miss Oplakanska remains the illustrator if the series does get another installment. I enjoy her artwork regardless of the lines on my electronic copy, and think that it has an appeal for readers in the target age range of 5 to 8 years. My personal rating for this one is 3.5 stars out of 5. I have not found this with any retailer other than Amazon where the paperback is available for $8.49 US. Links to the public domain images and NASA images used are in the description. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.